And on to our top story. A jubilant Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has vowed to press on with her plan to fly channel-crossing migrants to Rwanda after a High Court judge refused to block the first flight. A collective of lawyers representing the migrants, refugee charities and the trade union, which represents Border Force staff, had sought an injunction to stop the plane taking off as planned on Tuesday. Lawyers for the group claimed the Home Secretary's plan was unsafe and irrational and didn't protect the rights of migrants being sent to Rwanda. But Judge Mr. Justice Swift refused to grant the injunction and warned, however, that each migrant would have to be lawfully deported in future. talkTV's political editor Kate McCann is with us, joining us live from the High Court where the ruling took place. Kate, it's been a very long day in court. What is the outcome, really? Does this mean that those flights are going to go ahead?
Well, it does, Adam. It means that on Tuesday, if nothing happens in between now and then, and we'll come back to that in a moment, then that first flight, the UK's first deportation flight to Rwanda, will take place. Now, what happened today in court was not a judgment on the overall policy, so Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, can't be too excited yet. This was essentially an interim measure. What campaigners were trying to do was halt that flight from taking off while they could have a formal investigation into the policy itself. That would take, of course, a couple of months. Now, that could still take place, as could an appeal to the decision as you set it out there. That's likely to come on Monday, combined, we believe, with another case which is trying to stop that flight altogether. Now, the judge this evening, in summing up, said there was a material public interest in Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, allowing her policy to take its course. That means that on Tuesday, as I said, if nothing else happens between now and then, around 30 migrants, we believe, will be on a plane to Rwanda, those who've arrived in this country illegally. The first flight of its kind. It is, of course, very controversial. The UK government argued in court today that they do assess each individual case. The judge accepted that, and that this is a deterrent, a policy designed to stop those illegal crossings which have caused the deaths of so many people in the Channel, something that the UK government is determined to try and prevent. The argument against the policy was that Rwanda is not a safe country and that not enough work had been done to ensure that those being deported there would be safe. Now, in a statement tonight, Priti Patel has said, "I welcome the court's decision in our favour and will now continue to deliver on progressing our world-leading migration partnership. People will continue to try and prevent their relocation through legal challenges and last-minute claims, but we will not be deterred in breaking the deadly people smuggling trade and ultimately save lives. Rwanda is a safe country and has previously been recognised for providing a safe haven for refugees. We will continue preparations for the first flight to Rwanda, alongside a range of other measures intended to reduce small boat crossings." Worth saying, Adam, speaking to the Home Office tonight, they are pleased by the verdict today. They know there is still a long road ahead, and they do believe that many, many more of that 30 could be removed from the flight before Tuesday. In fact, it could end up that nobody is deported on Tuesday, but this is a significant moment, they believe, in arguing their case for that policy.
And Kate, a small number were taken off the list for deportation today, weren't they?
That's right. There were a number of individual cases wrapped up in what happened in the court today. And in fact, the judge could have decided either to injunct, essentially to prevent that flight from taking off on Tuesday, or to take people off that flight. Now, a number of them have been removed. This case involved 8 individuals. 6 of them will now not take off on that flight on Tuesday. That leaves 31, we believe, as I said, who are still scheduled to leave. Now, what it means for those people is that they would have to mount their own individual cases arguing against leaving for Rwanda. Now, part of the difficulty in that is that the UK government hasn't so far publicly set out the characteristics or the reasons that you ought not to be deported. They won't do that because they don't want people to have a list, if you like, of excuses why they should not be removed from the UK and deported to Rwanda. But some of those things are likely to be, for example, LGBTQ status. Some concerns about that were raised today during this case. So what we're likely to see on Monday is, as I say, that appeal, a combined further case arguing against this flight, and likely the removal of more of those 31.
Kate, thank you very much indeed. Well, Priti Patel's radical Rwanda migrant scheme may be controversial, but it is not the first of its kind. In fact, Australia's so-called Pacific solution turns migrant small boats around in the sea and takes asylum seekers for offshore processing in Papua New Guinea. Well, with me now is Alexander Downer, former Australian Foreign Minister, High Commissioner here. Presumably you think this is a good idea for the British government?
Yes, if they can make it work. I mean, it certainly worked very well for Australia. We didn't completely eliminate, but we pretty much eliminated people taking those very dangerous passages across from Indonesia to Australia. It's at the shortest, it's only 60 or 70 miles, but you know, it's a dangerous journey in little boats. So
yeah, but I mean, the main reason was to keep immigrants, illegal immigrants, out, wasn't it?
Well, to stop people coming using that method of coming. I mean, obviously, Australia has a huge immigration program and has a big refugee resettlement program, but people paying people smugglers to go and embark on dangerous journeys like that, that's not a good idea.
But within that, does it matter where you send the people instead of letting them into your country?
Yes, because these people, it's first of all where they come from, and in the case of Australia, they came from Indonesia. In the case of the UK, they come from France. They're not being persecuted in those countries. What they're doing is destination shopping. I mean, nobody's criticising anyone for destination shopping, but if you're into destination shopping, you have to deal with the rules.
But then to take someone and dump them in Rwanda, Africa, which has got nothing to do with where they came from.
No, but they've come actually, they might originally have come be Kurds from Iraq or somewhere.
Yeah, well,
but just a sec, just so the listeners really understand this, those people have already found safety in France.
Well, they haven't. They've been living in danger in camps.
Well, they've been living in camps by their choice. That's by their choice. That's a different thing from being persecuted. They're not being persecuted.
And also, France takes more refugees and asylum seekers than we do.
Regardless, it's neither here nor there. So, in the case of the UK, the obligation is to ensure that people who are genuine refugees have somewhere where they can be protected. The obligation isn't that they should go and live in the UK or choose where to live in the UK.
Yeah, but the UK
obligation
is asserting
to
the right
them.
to pick them up and chuck them into Africa.
Fine. I mean, that's perfectly OK.
And are you sure?
And not only is it perfectly OK to do that, because they're not being persecuted in Africa, it's perfectly OK to do that in order to stop people making these dangerous journeys. And look, if you don't do that, huge numbers of people will come that way. And then what are you going to do?
Well, the other way would be to have a proper way of processing.
Yeah, huge numbers of people will come illegally.
OK, now, are you sure that...
it's glib, with the greatest of respect, not to be harsh on you, but it's glib to say, oh, we could have a better processing system. These people are paying people smugglers to avoid the processing
NGOs
system.
work in this area, so effectively there's no constructive way for people in exile to apply for asylum now to come into this country.
That's to apply as migrants. The obligation that people have, including the government here have, is to ensure that people who are being persecuted or have a genuine fear of persecution are safe from that persecution. That's the obligation.
This is being tested in the courts as far as the UK is concerned now. How confident are you that it's legal?
Well, it was certainly legal in the case
law.
of... it's certainly consistent in my understanding with international law. Yes, there's no doubt about that.
Well, we've already had a climb down on, I think, three of the 4 cases on trial today.
Well, I don't know the details.
Well, they're the first 3, yeah.
Well, I don't know the details of those 3.
Yeah, but obviously there's a question, therefore, whether it is legal in
3 out of 100.
Yeah.
So the 97, another 97,
and even,
they're not.
I mean...
So I don't think you can draw any conclusions
And the
from that.
Australian idea, how far was that tested in
of course it was. I mean, you know, the NGOs, the lobby groups who basically believe in free access to Australia for everybody, they went to every court imaginable, yes. But in the end, the government lost some cases, but ultimately the government won.
The scheme's basically been wound down to a certain extent, hasn't it, now?
In Australia?
Yeah.
Well, of course, but the reason being that people don't come that way because people smugglers can't sell tickets on boats to come from Indonesia to Australia.
Now, you're an international diplomat. Rwanda, you confident that's the sort of place we should be sending people?
Well, I spent a week in Yeah, I am actually. I spent a week in Rwanda in 2019. It's a beautiful country. I don't think people should be patronising about Rwanda. It's a beautiful country. They're lovely people. Of course, it recovered from an absolutely shocking civil war.
I mean, the British government has taken out human rights cases against Rwanda.
Sure, again, yes, but you know, the UN, UNHCR, run refugee programs in Rwanda, that refugees coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from Burundi, into Rwanda. So it's not as though the UN takes the view that people will be persecuted if they go to Rwanda. There are still issues. There's still issues which are a legacy of the Tutsi-Hutu civil war. There are still some issues there, that's true. But there aren't broader issues of human rights in Rwanda.
And finally, this is all very expensive, isn't it? Shipping people off to Rwanda,
well,
paying the Rwanda government.
Let's say you did nothing. Let's say you did nothing. If you did nothing, you would end up with hundreds of thousands of people coming to the UK that way. I put it to you, that would be hugely expensive. You may as well, as we did in Australia, make the investment, stop this gruesome traffic, save people's lives, and set up normal processes for people to be able to come if you want migrants.
Alexander Danner, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.